area of the port and congested the port.
And so we found that to move the excavators from the port to that area so that they can free up space in the port. And they do that in the night
because of traffic in the daytime. So in the night, they have the payloaders moving the excavators out of the port to the designated areas where they are supposed to be held. And before any of those excavators is released, they must be tracked, they must have a tracker on them, they must be registered by the owner of the excavator, and we must know the purpose for which the excavator has been imported. Because the construction industry also imports excavators, and so you cannot put a blanket ban on importation of excavators just because you think that every excavator is going to go into the illegal mining industry. Even the big mining companies that have licenses import excavators. And so we want to know who is importing the excavators, who it is going to. We want to be able to put a tracker on it and be able to trace that excavator wherever it is in the country. We called off the IGP's anti-galamsey task force because they are supposed to coordinate with NIMOS. That is the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. Unfortunately, they were not doing that. So every little commander in any this thing gets up, galamsey phobia, they can't tell who is licensed, they can't tell who is not licensed. And so it was just like an attack on the whole small-scale mining industry. And so what we said was they should freeze their action, they should synchronize it with the National Anti-Galamsey Operational Secretariat so that they can be directed exactly to where to go in terms of the anti-galamsey fight. While we're fighting galamsey, it doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all for everybody to get up. Anybody gets up, puts on a helmet, puts on a jacket, and says, I'm anti-galamsey. They say, we're not looking for chaos. We're looking to do it, in a scientific manner so that we do not hurt the whole of the small-scale mining industry. We talked about special courts for anti-corruption. I actually said we'll speak with the Chief Justice and see if they can create special courts for prosecuting people who are flagged in the Auditor General's report. And so that is something the Attorney General is pursuing, because every year we see Auditor General's report, it goes before the Public Accounts Commission, they say this person diverted this person misappropriated this and that, and yet no action is taken. And so Ghanaians have been saying, so what's the use of the Auditor General's report? And so we're asking the Chief Justice, can you create special courts which can fast-track action on the Auditor General's report? So people who are determined to be criminally liable after the Public Accounts Committee has sat can be put before those courts so that they are sanctioned to create a deterrent so that other people do not do the same thing that they have done. Very good question on rent and homelessness, and I'm happy to give you the microphone to ask it. The biggest expenditure in any Ghanaian's budget is rent. And even though we have laws, enforcing them has been difficult. The rent law says that a landlord cannot charge more than 6 months. But the problem in enforcing the law is the connivance of the tenant and the landlord. The tenant won't come and report that they are charging him 1 year's rent advance because he wants the room. And so that has been the problem. And the problem is because our population is growing beyond our housing capacity. So the competition for accommodation and housing is very strong. And that is why we must expand our housing coverage. And I remember in our manifesto, we have a pledge to expand housing. And in the next budget, we're going to make provision for that. I've already had a discussion with some of the associations, the organized labor associations. Some of them have funds that are sitting in their accounts. And they have members who want houses. So what I've said is government will match their funds. And so if they give 1 billion cedis, we will give 1 billion cedis. And then one of the banks, Republic Bank, has said that they are willing to also match with 1 billion cedis. So if we get a 3 billion cedi fund, we can start building houses in all the districts And as people pay their down payments, it will go back into the fund and it will become a revolving fund. And governments can give it to people. I said if you have like about 15 to 20 years before retirement, you can take a house and we'll be deducting from your salary monthly, so that by the time your retirement time is up, you have your own accommodation to go to. And as we take those deductions, they will go back into the fund. So it becomes like a revolving fund, so that we can increase the housing stock. But the Minister of Finance will talk about that when he reads the budget in November. Minyaba, se ufi yekrom honomo. Techiman wenchi Bamboy Bole Wa Road, a major international corridor. Na nearby, adia ba say a quine say a bedroom rebia trucks ni bebre omoko Mali any Burkina Faso a ye Bobo Dulaso a hono a hoakoye kwanya a won faso ma omo enti omo mfa techiman omo mfa kentampo kwan ni biom e ko pagansa na omo akomani because omo fa wenchi kwan na omo ko pie bole no mo pie wa no mo ko pie hamile wodru hamile a Bobo Dulaso e wo enchen ho a o pai efa wonsa benkum so a de wo ko Bamako enti ama enhyen akese ne bebre enam sa kwan no so ekwan no so ya nye ne se ebetimi afa sa wait, how do you call wait? And ya nye ekwan no se ne befa sa enyoma na omofa no emu odu enti ama kwan na se kra enti yese obia hokuru nso eba na na emu meboa ho na misu mi free nti ye big push no ma shada de akoshe big push no mo enti nyame adom enche kra obehu se contractor ego so den na fe akachom ze omo ye kwan na omo nye no senia trucks e fa so no emma ne nsa biom because afa ye hu se eho e no mo pefa enti ye kwan no ne nye ne yie se na be ye omo fa so mpo a ekwan no beche amayen na omo ye no so se bole ye mikrom nti me se contractor na ye no bole town roads on kai na on sisi ho emame nti eyade a enche bia obehu se baso Palugu multi-purpose dam, we are rescoping the project, and so currently the contract was awarded to Sino Hydro, but it was supposed to be funded from Government of Ghana sources. Government of Ghana didn't have the money, and so the contract was not executed. And so we are rescoping it. It means we have to do an appraisal of what the costing will be again. And what we intend is to, if possible, finance it under the big push. The last time it was to cost about $900 and something million, almost $1 billion. And $1 billion today is about 11 point something, almost 12. So that would be about 12 billion CDs. This year, the total budget for big push was 14 billion. Next year, the total budget is 30 billion. And so we'll see how we can accommodate it in phases, because it has two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Maybe we might not be able to do the two phases immediately, but we can start with phase 1, which is the electricity production, and then phase 2 is the flood control and irrigation. And so we're rescoping it, and you'll soon hear something about it. With regards to stadia, we promised to build stadia in all the new regions and the regions that don't have modern stadia. So as I speak, the Ministry of Sports and Recreation is doing the design and the costing for the new stadia. And Upper East is one of the regions that has been captured to receive a new sports stadium. That also is under the big push. What we're doing is Takwa Goldfields built a stadium, a standard stadium for their football activities. And I was surprised to learn it costs about $13 million. When government of Ghana has built stadia, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars. But for those of you who have gone to Takwa and see their stadium, it's a standard stadium. And I think it takes about 5,000 or more, or is it 10,000 people? And so if they could build it for 13 million, government too should be able to do same. So we've asked them to find out the architects, the designers, and everybody who did that stadium so that we can replicate it in our other regions that don't have a stadium. And then finally, Ashigami, we've got the money. China is giving us money for the Aflao market. The land has been acquired and designs are being worked on, and soon a contractor will be appointed to build the market. And so that promise is on track. Aviation school at Ho Airport, Togbi Afede is leading the charge. The current status is that the land has been allocated, and currently surveyors are on the land marking out the demarcation for the aviation school. We're also trying to attract an MRO. MRO is Maintenance Repair Organization, and so we want to use Ho Airport as the center for maintaining aircrafts. There are a lot of aircrafts in Nigeria and other places that if we have a good MRO in Ho, we'll just fly the short distance and come and service their aircrafts there. And so we're working on that. The last question was about the referral of two of our executives to IOCO to investigate allegations of involvement in illegal mining. That investigation is active. Some allegations were made, and IOCO is investigating whether there was any substance to the allegation. As and when they conclude that investigation, they'll give us a report, and we'll determine what should be done. So that's it. I think I've answered all the questions so far. I thank you very much for your attendance, and this is the first in several such encounters. I'll make myself available as regularly as possible to answer any questions that you might pose on behalf of the general public. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I was actually billed to give a vote of thanks, but it would appear that you have done it at presidential level. So I'll proceed to thank all of you and indicate that we'll draw the curtains down on this program at this juncture. But before we do that, we'll all stand for the national anthem, after which His Excellency will depart.